In a peaceful Igbo village near the banks of the Ogbu River, a woman named Nkem and her husband, Obinna, lived together in love but sorrow. Despite their years of marriage, they were childless. Nkem had conceived many times, but her pregnancies always ended in miscarriages. Obinna's family began to whisper, accusing her of witchcraft. They urged him to take another wife, but Obinna refused. His love for Nkem was steadfast, and he believed that one day she would bear him a child. Years later, when Nkem became pregnant again, the villagers doubted it would last. "This is how she always gets pregnant," they muttered, "but she'll lose it again and use it for her rituals." Against all odds, Nkem carried her pregnancy full term and gave birth to twin daughters, Olaedo and Chioma. Twins, or Ejima, were rare in the village and considered both a blessing and a sign of the divine. The villagers celebrated, dancing to the rhythms of the budu drum and offering yam, kola nuts, and palm wine to the family. As Olaedo and Chioma grew, their beauty and charm made them beloved by everyone. Villagers competed to spend time with the twins, showering them with gifts of beads, wrappers, and udo fruits. Yet, even in their early years, strange occurrences began to follow them. One Ike market day, a well-known trader, Adiz, took the twins with her to the market. While Adiz was busy selling, the twins secretly ate some of her food. Furious, Adiz scolded and beat them with a broom. Instead of crying, Olaedo and Chioma laughed, saying, "The marks you gave us will appear on your own daughter." Adiz dismissed this as childish nonsense, until she returned home to find her daughter crying, with identical welts on her back. When Adiz told the villagers, they were skeptical at first. But as more strange incidents occurred, people grew cautious around the twins. The laughter and joy the girls once brought began to be tinged with fear. One fateful day, Olaedo and Chioma broke a rule their mother had always impressed upon them: never go near the Ogbu River. Nkem never explained why, but her warnings were firm. The twins, yearning for freedom and companionship, decided to disobey. They joined other villagers at the riverbank, where women washed clothes and children played in the water. When the twins arrived, many villagers stepped back uneasily, leaving their chores unfinished. Olaedo and Chioma pleaded with them, saying, "We are just like you. Let us play together." Reluctantly, a few children stayed, and soon, the twins were splashing and laughing like everyone else. But as Chioma playfully splashed water on Olaedo, something shocking happened. Olaedo's skin began to glisten, transforming into golden scales. Her legs merged, becoming the tail of a fish. Panicked, Chioma tried to pull her sister out of the water, but as she touched it, her own transformation began. The villagers screamed and ran to fetch Nkem. When Nkem arrived, she saw her daughters half submerged in the river, their human forms slipping away. She fell to her knees, crying, "What have you done? Why did you disobey me?" As the river's waters swirled around the twins, the village priest, Dibia Uche, arrived, bearing a grim revelation. "The children," Uche said, "are not fully of this world. They are daughters of Mmiri Ọma, the river goddess. Nkem, tell the truth. What did you do to bring them into this world?" Through her tears, Nkem confessed. Years ago, desperate for children, she had visited a powerful Dibia who made a pact with Mmiri Ọma. The goddess blessed her with twins, but under one condition: the children must never touch the river, or they would return to their true home. There was no way to reverse what had begun. With the village chanting prayers, the Ogbu River claimed Olaedo, who fully transformed into a golden fish and disappeared beneath the surface. Chioma, however, was returned to the riverbank, fully human once again. The villagers gasped in awe, realizing the power and mercy of Mmiri Ọma. Nkem clutched Chioma, weeping for the daughter she had lost. The priest urged the villagers to honor the river and its goddess, warning them never to forget the pact. In the months that followed, Chioma grew into a young woman. The villagers treated her with a mix of reverence and distance, seeing her as a link to the divine. She often sat by the river, calling out to Olaedo, and at times, the waters seemed to shimmer as if her sister were listening. One year, a severe drought struck the village. The river's waters began to recede, and the crops withered. The villagers turned to Chioma, begging her to ask Mmiri Ọma for help. Nervous but determined, Chioma stepped into the shallow waters of the Ogbu River. She called out, "Olaedo, my sister. Mmiri Ọma, our mother. Hear my plea. Our people are suffering. Please, bless us with rain." The river rippled, and Chioma felt a presence around her. A golden fish surfaced briefly, its eyes meeting hers. Then, dark clouds rolled across the sky, and rain began to fall. The villagers danced and sang in gratitude, promising to care for the river and its surroundings. As years passed, Chioma grew into a wise and respected figure in the village. Her bond with the Ogbu River and her sister, Olaedo, had become the lifeblood of the community. Whenever Chioma sat by the riverbank, the waters shimmered and golden fish often swam close to her, as if drawn to her presence. Villagers believed this was Olaedo watching over them. Chioma's role as the custodian of the river deepened. The droughts that once plagued the village ceased, and the Ogbu River never ran dry. Under her guidance, the villagers built shrines to honor Mmiri Ọma, offering yams, palm wine, and kola nuts during IRIG festivals to show gratitude to the goddess. Each year, they held a Nkem and Obinna, a water ceremony where the people sang and danced in celebration of the river's blessings. But Chioma carried a secret burden. Every full moon, she would hear whispers in the wind calling her to the river. At night, her dreams were filled with visions of Olaedo, who seemed to beckon her to join her beneath the waves. Though she loved the village, Chioma could not ignore the pull of the river, which grew stronger with each passing year. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the river glowed under the light of the full moon, Chioma sat by the water's edge, lost in thought. Suddenly, the water rippled, and a golden fish emerged, its scales shining like molten gold. The fish swam in circles before transforming into a figure that made Chioma gasp. It was Olaedo, her sister, radiant and ethereal, her hair flowing like streams of water. "Olaedo!" Chioma cried, tears streaming down her face. "Sister," Olaedo said softly, her voice like the lull of the river. "I have missed you, but you must prepare for what is to come. The bond between us is unbreakable, but it comes with a price. Our mother, Mmiri Ọma, has plans for you." Chioma's heart raced. "What plans?" "I am content here, protecting the river and our people." Olaedo shook her head. "The river's peace will not last. Forces beyond this village seek to harm it. Our mother has chosen you to be her voice on land, just as I am her servant beneath the waters. You must be strong, for the safety of our people and the river depends on you." Before Chioma could respond, Olaedo faded back into the water, leaving only ripples in her wake. The next day, news spread that strangers had arrived in the village. They were traders from a distant land, offering rare goods such as iron tools, coral beads, and fine fabrics. But along with their wares came whispers of trouble. These men sought more than trade. They wanted to divert the Ogbu River to irrigate lands far away. The village chief called an emergency meeting under the Yulo Ogbi, the communal gathering hut. The elders debated fiercely. Some believed they should accept the traders' terms, tempted by the promise of wealth. Others, including the priest Dibia Uche, warned against angering Mmiri Ọma. Chioma stood up, her voice clear and firm. "The Ogbu River is not ours to give. It belongs to Mmiri Ọma, and she has entrusted us to protect it. To disturb its flow is to invite disaster." The chief, swayed by Chioma's conviction, decided to refuse the traders' demands. But the traders were not easily deterred. They began secretly plotting to reroute the river by night, hoping to avoid the village's watchful eyes. One moonless night, Chioma felt an overwhelming urge to visit the river. Taking her lantern, she walked through the forest, her heart heavy with unease. When she reached the riverbank, she saw shadows moving in the darkness. The traders were digging trenches, their torches flickering as they worked to change the river's course. "Stop!" Chioma shouted, her voice ringing out like a clap of thunder. The men turned, startled. They laughed when they saw her, dismissing her as just a village girl. But Chioma stood her ground. Kneeling by the river, she called out to Mmiri Ọma and Olaedo, her hands cupped in the cool water. The ground began to tremble. The river swelled, its waters rising higher and higher until they formed a towering wave. The traders screamed as the water surged towards them, sweeping away their tools and scattering them like leaves. The wave receded without harming the village, but the traders fled in terror, never to return. The next morning, the villagers gathered by the river, awed by what had happened. Dibia Uche stepped forward and proclaimed, "Mmiri Ọma has shown her power through Chioma. From this day, let no one forget that the river is sacred, and its guardian is among us." The villagers built a larger shrine to Mmiri Ọma, and Chioma was given the title Nwanyi Mmiri, the woman of the river. She became a spiritual leader, guiding the village not only in honoring the river, but in living harmoniously with nature. Under her care, the Ogbu River became a source of prosperity, its waters feeding the crops and its banks blossoming with life. Years passed, and Chioma grew old. Yet, her bond with the river remained as strong as ever. On her final day, she walked to the riverbank and sat beneath the shade of an udara tree, gazing at the water. As the sun set, the river shimmered, and Olaedo's voice called out to her once more. "Chioma, it is time." Smiling, Chioma closed her eyes and stepped into the river. The waters embraced her, and she vanished beneath the surface. The villagers mourned her loss, but took comfort in the belief that she had joined her sister in the river's depths. From that day on, the Ogbu River was known as Mmiri Ọma, the River of the Twins. The story of Olaedo and Chioma became legend, passed down through generations as a lesson in courage, sacrifice, and the sacred bond between humanity and nature.